Imagine stepping into the gilded world of royal courts, where every hall sparkled with chandeliers, silk gowns rustled on marble floors, and jewels glittered in the sunlight. But take a deep breath, and the illusion crumbles, because the air was thick with a stench so foul it could make even the bravest visitor gag. Welcome to the hidden reality of royal life, a world where beauty masked filth, and noble women, for all their titles and treasures, endured a hygiene nightmare. Today we dive headfirst, metaphorically, thank goodness, into the shockingly grotesque hygiene practices of royal women. These are the 9 worst hygiene horrors that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about palace life. For the women of Versailles, water was more foe than friend. Doctors warned that warm baths opened the pores to invisible diseases, and the church preached that bathing was a sin of vanity. The result? Full body washes were rare, sometimes months apart. Instead, noble women relied on dry cleaning. Cloths dampened with vinegar, wine, or even saliva were used to wipe their faces, hands, and necks. When baths did occur, they were communal events. Men went first, and by the time a woman entered, the water was cloudy, greasy, and lukewarm at best. Perfume and powder attempted to mask the odor, but the palace reeked of a mix of stale sweat, animal fat, and lingering filth. Imagine gliding through gilded halls in silk, weighed down with jewels, while your skin hadn't seen soap in months. It was a shocking contradiction: opulence above, squalor below. But avoiding water wasn't the only challenge. Next came a problem even closer to home: the lack of proper toilets. Versailles dazzled visitors with its grandeur, but behind the gilded doors, sanitation was nearly non-existent. Hundreds of rooms, thousands of inhabitants, and barely a functioning toilet in sight. Instead, chamber pots were tucked under beds, hidden behind curtains, or carried discreetly through the corridors. When full, their contents were often dumped straight out the windows. If you were unlucky enough to be in the gardens below, you might receive an unpleasant surprise. Men sometimes didn't bother with pots at all, urinating in stairwells, balconies, or even the palace gardens. The stench was constant, a mixture of human waste and decaying matter that clung to the halls. Washing afterward was minimal. Leaves, straw, scraps of cloth, or even bare hands were common alternatives to modern hygiene. The result? Disease and parasites thrived, making the palace as dangerous as it was beautiful. And if that wasn't enough, women also had to endure the next horror: hair, wigs, and lice infestations that crawled right on top of their heads. At Versailles, fashion wasn't just clothing, it was hair. Royal women wore towering hairstyles, sometimes over a foot high, decorated with ribbons, pearls, flowers, and even miniature ships balanced atop their heads. These architectural feats required wire frames, horsehair, and thick layers of animal fat pomade to hold their shape. But that same pomade created a perfect environment for lice. Infestations weren't rare, they were expected. Noble women carried silver lice claws, delicate tools with long handles, to scratch their itchy scalps discreetly, even during meals or social events. Wigs weren't just uncomfortable, they were hazardous. Some were so heavy they caused chronic neck pain, while others were close enough to candle flames to catch fire. Yet court life left no choice: appearance was everything. For the poor, shaving the head solved the problem, but for noble women, their elaborate hairstyles were both crown and curse, hiding entire colonies of lice. And while lice crawled, another danger lurked: food that was supposed to nourish often carried disease straight from the filthy palace kitchens. Royal banquets were legendary, overflowing with roasted meats, pastries, sugared fruits, and delicate pies. Yet behind the grandeur, Versailles kitchens were a nightmare of contamination. The palace's plumbing was poor, and raw sewage sometimes backed up directly into cooking areas. Reports suggest that even Queen Marie Antoinette's private kitchens weren't spared. Without refrigeration, ventilation, or proper waste disposal, food spoiled quickly. Fruits and vegetables were left out for days, and pests scurried freely across the counters. Undercooked meat and contaminated dishes made intestinal parasites, like tapeworms, common even among kings. Louis XIV himself reportedly passed a 6-inch-long tapeworm. A grim reminder that wealth offered no protection from the consequences of poor hygiene. Dining was a performance for women: eat gracefully, chat, flirt, and entertain. All while fighting nausea, cramps, or worse illnesses silently. And yet this was only the beginning. The next horror struck in the most intimate, vulnerable moments of life: childbirth. Childbirth at Versailles was far from private. When a queen or high-ranking noblewoman went into labor, it became a spectacle, a national event. Courtiers, doctors, priests, and even visiting dignitaries crowded into the chamber not to assist, but to witness. The fear of scandal was paramount. No one wanted rumors of a swapped heir or an illegitimate child. Women endured labor in full view, often surrounded by dozens of onlookers, while in excruciating pain. Fainting, screaming, and collapse were common. Queen Marie Therese famously passed out during her delivery, overcome by heat and the sheer number of observers. Medical knowledge was limited, infection control non-existent, and 1 in 3 children died before their 3rd birthday. Mothers also faced high mortality rates, largely due to unwashed hands and unsterile tools. In a world obsessed with appearances, childbirth was a public performance, fraught with fear, pain, and danger. And yet, the challenges of motherhood didn't end at birth. The next horror reveals how royal women struggled with raising children amidst court pressures and intrigue. After surviving the horrors of childbirth, royal women faced the next challenge: raising children under constant scrutiny. Wet nurses often took over infant care, leaving mothers with little control over their own children. Decisions about feeding, discipline, and daily routines were dictated by palace tradition or political pressures, not maternal instinct. Rumors swirled, constantly favoritism, secret alliances, or whispers about illegitimate heirs. Every action, every glance could be interpreted as a political statement. And while children were being groomed for privilege, disease ran rampant. High child mortality rates, infections, and malnutrition were daily realities, even for the sons and daughters of kings and queens. For noble women, motherhood was a delicate balancing act. Perform your duties flawlessly, maintain appearances, and pray that illness or scandal didn't strike. Yet even beyond child-rearing, women faced horrors of beauty and fashion that threatened both their health and sanity. Next, we dive into the toxic cosmetics and dangerous beauty rituals that defined Versailles. At Versailles, beauty was power, but it came at a dangerous cost. Noble women layered their faces with powders made from lead, arsenic, and other toxic substances, believing pale, flawless skin signaled status and sophistication. Rouge and lip color were often mixed with dangerous chemicals that caused rashes, infections, and even long-term skin damage. Hair treatments weren't much safer. Pomades made from animal fat trapped dirt and lice, while heavy wigs pulled at scalps and caused chronic pain. Some women suffered hair loss or scalp infections from constant styling and toxic creams. Yet the pressure to maintain perfection never let up. Every day was a high-stakes gamble. Preserve your appearance to keep status, or risk your health by following fashion. While struggling under these pressures, women also endured another grotesque horror: extreme fashion that physically deformed their bodies. Fashion at Versailles wasn't just about beauty, it was a trial of endurance. Corsets were laced impossibly tight, reshaping ribs, restricting breathing, and causing fainting spells. Women risked permanent deformities just to appear elegant and slender. Shoes, too, were cruel. Pointed toes and tight-fitting designs led to bunions, infections, and lifelong foot pain. Some even altered their posture or gait to conform to courtly expectations, creating additional physical strain. Every outfit, every layer of silk and lace, was a blend of spectacle and suffering. Despite the agony, no woman dared ignore fashion. Status, power, and survival in the palace hierarchy depended on appearance, even if it meant enduring pain, deformity, or injury. And as if this weren't enough, these pressures fed into the final, most insidious horror: the psychological toll of palace life. Beyond the baths, chamber pots, wigs, and poison powders, life at Versailles exacted a hidden mental price. Royal women were under constant pressure to maintain flawless appearances while navigating a world of gossip, jealousy, and political intrigue. Every misstep could cost status, favor, or even safety. The relentless pursuit of perfection, combined with unsanitary conditions and physical discomfort, created deep anxiety and chronic stress. Many women suffered quietly from despair, insomnia, and exhaustion. Behind the gilded smiles and elegant gestures were bodies and minds pushed to the limit. Life at court demanded a performance that left little room for private comfort or genuine happiness. Women scratched, suffered, and survived in ways history rarely records, embodying both grace and human vulnerability. Versailles dazzled the world with its gold, silk, and crystal, but behind that brilliance lay a palace of suffering. Royal women endured unspeakable conditions: rare baths, overflowing chamber pots, lice-infested wigs, public childbirth, toxic beauty rituals, painful fashion, and relentless psychological pressure. These 9 grotesque hygiene horrors reveal the stark reality beneath elegance and refinement. Life was uncomfortable, dangerous, and often deadly. Appearances ruled above all else, forcing women to perform grace while surviving filth, disease, and fear. So next time you imagine the glittering courts of 17th century France, remember,